Good morning, anyone who may be watching. This is Pastor Larry with a moment in the Word. And we have started yesterday. We're going to do a study of the book of Revelations. We're not going to get too deep, but I believe by the time, if you stay with us, you'll have a well-rounded understanding of the book. Yesterday we did verses 1, 2, and 3, and with the idea of going to 4 this morning, but I just started back up doing this yesterday, and I didn't cover 1, 2, 3 quite as well as I think I should have. I believe that if I just leave it as it is, you're possibly going to have some objections, and so want to go back to 1, 2, and 3 just for a few minutes and see if we can't share with you a couple of 3 words or statements there that might make it a little bit clear. For example, when we look at verse 1 there, it said the revelation of Jesus Christ, which God gave to him to give to his servants or to the angels, to give to his servant John. And what John is going to do, he's going to write the book of Revelations, and we'll get a little bit further in chapter 1 there. Jesus will tell him to send it to the 7 churches that are in Asia Minor. Now then, we'll talk about a little bit later why he picked these 7 churches, for there were many more than just 7 churches. We had a church there at Antioch and Pisidia, Lystra, Derbe, Neapolis, Colossus, Troas, and others. And so why these 7? We'll talk about that a little bit later, but anyway, he's going to write to 7 churches. And what I wanted to go back to chapter 1, 2, and 3 and look at and maybe try to explain a little bit fuller is there, he says there that John is going to write the things which must shortly come to pass. Now then, shortly in our English language means in a brief time, pretty soon. And yet it's been 2,000 years since John wrote that, and Jesus hasn't come back yet. And so how do we explain that? Well, first of all, understand John didn't write in English, and Greek was the language of the day. And John is going to use a Greek word. Actually, the Greeks, as in so many words that we have one word for love, for example, and they have 4. But anyway, the Greeks have 3 words for shortly. The first word is eutheos, which means coming soon, will happen or will be here before long. That's not the word that John uses. Another 2 words there is tachios, T-A-C-H-E-O-S, or tachyon, and it has a totally different meaning. It means whenever it happens, it will happen quickly or it will happen suddenly. In other words, nobody knows what time. Jesus made it plain to his disciples. Not even the angels of heaven knows. Jesus doesn't even indicate that he knows, but that the Father only knows. But when it happens, it will happen suddenly. Paul says in 1 Corinthians chapter 15, verse 52, in the twinkling of an eye. He says, I show you a mystery. We shall not all sleep, but we shall all be changed in a moment, in the twinkling of an eye. Speaking about the rapture there. And so the word shortly there doesn't mean that it's going to happen real soon. It just means that when it does happen, it will happen suddenly. Jesus said in Matthew chapter 24, there, I believe 42, 43, I believe it is. But anyway, he says there, watch therefore, for you know not the hour. If the good man of the house would have known what hour the thief was going to break in, he could have prepared for him. Paul will use the same term in 1 Thessalonians chapter 5. In verses 1 and 2 there, he says there, concerning Christ is coming, and you need not that I write unto you, for you know it very well that when he comes, he's going to come as a thief in the night. In Revelation chapter 16, Paul is going to say there in verse 15, behold, I come quickly, and we're to be prepared, lest we should be found unprepared or found naked, and they should see our shame there. And so, first of all, is that word shortly. We wanted to explain that to you. There's another word there that he says there that the angels are going to signify to John. From the fact that the angels are writing about heavenly, about spiritual things, sometimes they will use symbols. For example, in chapter 5, John is standing before the throne there, and he sees the Father, and he has a book in his hand, and John said, and I saw a lamb. Well, no, John didn't see a lamb. John saw Jesus, but because in the Old Testament, the lamb was what was slain to cover the sins of the people once each year. Well, Christ, in a much greater way, with much more permanency, is a type, or the lamb, we should say, is a type of Christ. And Christ is referred to as the Lamb of God. And so John not only speaks of him as being the lion, or the Lamb of God, but as the Lion of Judah. And so certainly John saw Jesus. Literally, Jesus was literally there, but John says, I saw a lamb there. Figuratively or symbolically, literally there, he will see Jesus, but he describes him as a lamb. There's another, a third thing here that maybe we might need to address, and that is the fact that in verse 3 there, he points out there, for the time is at hand. Well, when we say the time is at hand, again, we have that tendency to think that, okay, it's time. If Sunday morning at 9:45, we could say the time is at hand for Sunday school to start. And so when John says the time is at hand there, he doesn't mean there that, okay, while John is writing, it's time. But again, kind of back to that word shortly there, what John is saying here, whenever it happens, it will happen. In other words, John isn't talking about, I believe as Adrian Rogers said, he's not talking about the fact that it is going to be immediate, but that it's going to be imminent. Whenever it happens, it will happen. Whenever God has foreordained for it to happen, it will happen. And so he's talking about not at that moment. Again, the Greek words has a word for this time there, which is kairos, and when you put it with another word, it means that it is certain that which is foreordained time, it will happen. And so God has foreordained a time, and when that time comes, it will happen. It's not something that is not going to happen. As Jude, or as Peter said, many scoffers in the last days will say. It will happen. It is imminent. And when God gets ready, it will happen. And so wanted to make those corrections there in 1, 2, 3 there, so that you don't maybe can become confused or fail to comprehend just what it is. We'll stop here with this. This is Pastor Larry with a moment in the Word. Go forth today. Bless someone. It'll bless them. It'll bless you. And it'll bless God. Have a wonderful Tuesday.